I got torched. I got pilloried.
Yep.
I got decried. I was told that it was internet magic money and that I was a loser. And my clients were upset with me. The wirehouses, that was the thing. And we have a relationship with the wirehouses. They're very arbitrary and capricious. You have one bad quarter, they'll fire you immediately. You could have a 15-year relationship with you. There's an expression on Wall Street: you're only as good as your last trade. Nothing is more true than if you have a wirehouse relationship. They could care less about you. And so they put a sell on the fund. Lots of clients redeemed. My fund shrunk. So I think we peaked. There were reports that we were at $9 billion. We're actually never at $9 billion because we had like $5 billion from Citibank that we were getting. Architecture, caricature of me sinking in a Bitcoin boat.
Oh my God, that's so perfect.
And so my buddies, because we got comedians all over the place.
Yeah, they
had this made for me, this bobblehead, right? So it was really bad, and I was really, I believed, and I believe more today than I did 5 years ago,
sure,
Jesse.
yeah.
But I'm not going to be one of those, BS artists on your show and tell you that I was. I believed and I wasn't leaving the position, but did I have some self-doubt creep into my decision-making alongside of my team? Yes, I did. I'm not gonna pretend otherwise because that was a delicate, difficult period of time for us. So today our revenues are quadrupled. Our assets of growing finance roots.
Yeah.
I believe this stuff is going to get tokenized. And I think it's going to run on a blockchain rail system that's going to look like Solana or Avalanche, maybe Sui. Yep. Okay, and so I own that because I think that's going to be part of the rail system. If you, maybe not you, because it looks like all you do is own Bitcoin. But if there were
life's
other
easier,
people,
yeah,
right, exactly. But I mean, people that are going to trade stocks and bonds.
Yeah,
they're going to trade tokenized stocks and bonds, and I believe that they're going to be on a rail system. And because of my traditional finance roots, I own some of that, but I'm really from a purist. And I wrote a book. I don't know if I have copies around me, but I wrote a book called The Little Book of Bitcoin. I had the forward written by Michael Saylor, which really just took people through my personal odyssey and Skybridge's odyssey. Okay, you think you're the people, you think everyone's into Bitcoin. No, my generation, my demographic, they still, and I repeat, they still don't understand it. My generation, my demographic is still, followers of Jamie Dimon and followers of Warren Buffett.
Sure, I was going to say.
And so just imagine if we can penetrate that group of people. Just imagine if we can open them up to the idea of Bitcoin. Now, Larry, of course, what a great story. 2021, I hate Bitcoin. I'm going to make an investment in Circle. Of course, he's done very well with his Circle investment. And then he pivots. I'm glad it passed, and I think it was a step in the right direction, but they won't let these guys put yield on them. That's the American Banking Association. Yeah. So the stablecoin guys have a one-to-one backing of your money.
Sure.
Jesse, let me ask them, do the banks have a one-to-one backing of your money?
And they do not. Yeah. Okay, and they're not allowed to. I don't think they're allowed to. The full reserve banks, I think there's been a struggle in the US to get those approved. Right? There's been a number of efforts and people want that.
Yeah. It's a fractional reserve banking system, which is subject to a crash every 15 years, which requires governmental intervention. But if you're going to compete against that, and you're going to have full reserve stable coins, what do you think is going to happen? The money's going to flow out of the banking system into full reserve stable coins that are offering you a yield. Okay. And that, if you saw the taxes that the people pay here, you'd be like, well, you remember, taxes should be a price for services, but in this country, in this city, they're not, so because if they were putting the money, talk about reserve banking, how much of the tax dollars actually goes into a road dyed yellow, because they had done that successfully for 95 years. They thought that was going to continue. You see what I mean? So I would like to say that we were bold enough to do that with or without COVID, but I'm not sure. But if you're making the point that COVID was a catalyst, it was, because you got to see what was going on in the markets. You got to see what was going on in the governments. And you were like, okay, we're drunk driving. We're drunk driving with central bank currency. We're drunk driving with our spending. And this Satoshi Nakamoto computer programming team or computer programmer figured out that he could take the drunk driving keys away from people. If he could create, we need some guidance from where those tokens are going to be housed, for regulatory purposes. Are they going to be in the SEC or are they going to be in the CFTC? Mm-hmm. If you said to me today, do we have the technology to do this? We do have the technology to do this. Is the regulation behind the technology? It is. Are there resistant forces that are very powerful in the lobbying community that can prevent this, that can create a slowdown in tech? So this is a little bit off target of the conversation, but hear me out for a second because it ties back in. The money is flowing from the big companies and the big banks and the big businesses into Washington. Since Citizens United, a floodgate, because they were a monopoly and they were the one game in town, and that's happening with places like Google and places like Meta and places like Amazon, even on the cloud. And so you need the breakup. Said differently, why is Bitcoin so successful? It's fully decentralized. And you need to create more decentralized tech so that people can work on it together and get it to grow faster. And so the tokenization thing is being held back by status quo parties that are funneling lots of money into the regulators and preventing the tech from, over time, they get together and they topple you because there's a very small group of powerful people at the top, right? And so that happens, and you can see that throughout history. So I would caution people. They should be moving to where you want things to go more quickly, because where you want things to go is fairer for the society. See what I mean? And so, but this is the dilemma that we have. And so guys like Teddy Roosevelt, they got that. They broke up the trust. They broke up Rockefeller. They broke up Standard Oil. Reagan got that. He broke up AT&T with Judge Harold Green. In order to have the thing flourish, you've got to have everybody doing well. Henry Ford understood that. He was like, all right, he was a racist, in many ways a bad guy, but he was like, I got a coin and it's now 5x where it was.
You didn't get a gold star?
No. Do you think that there's a yacht out there like this? Look at me. You think I'm driving around in a yacht, or am I? Remember something about the media. When it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're doing well, they're not writing that. Why would they write that? And by the way, I don't need them to write it. I don't really give a shit. I'm just saying to you that, like, you want to be on the frontier. You're going to get some arrows shot at you. You're going to be in the covered wagon, rumbling along, and some good and bad things are going to happen. But you think about it from this perspective. You get there, the land is yours. And to Evan, it can be a hedge. It could be a liquidity deposit for me. It could be, okay, I'm going overnight on these trades. Let me pump several $1 million into Bitcoin. Okay, the weekend is coming. Yeah, maybe we're going to be bombing somebody. Maybe something crazy is going to happen over the weekend, right? Watch Bitcoin over the weekend, because what happens is it's so liquid. If you're a macro trader or you've got other trades on,
exactly, yeah,
Bitcoin may drop over the weekend as you're trying to hedge yourself, or Bitcoin may go up over the weekend as you're trying to take on more. I think Bitcoin still is, in my mind, it's transitioning from a risk asset and a tech asset. I mean, I think he's nuts. Yeah. He's a quirky guy.
I think he's less nuts now. I remember
less nuts now.
Like, no, I mean, when I thought he was nuts 10 years ago, but I feel like I've kind of started to understand his position now.
Yeah, he's still nuts. But Rand Paul said something that I actually really like repeating, and I got to give him credit for it, because he said it, I didn't say it. He says, if the Chinese aren't doing it and the Chinese hate it, we should probably be doing it, right?
Yeah.
And this was like when China knocked Bitcoin out. This is a couple of years back. Maybe it was 21 or 22. They canceled all the mine. Right. They said, okay, you got to go. No more mining in China and no more transaction. They banned Bitcoin. And so Rand Paul's like, all right, so we probably should be like all over Bitcoin of the other old fogies. Do you know what I mean? And
it's great.
What's that?
I think that's great. I mean,
finally, I know I'm probably sound like I'm patting myself on the back. I'm not trying to.
Not at all.
Because I've gotten so many things wrong, Jesse. I had the the Uber guys, they come in to see me. It's at like it's like, I don't know, it's like a $500 million valuation. I said, okay, what's going to happen? There's an unknown driver in an unknown black car is going to drive my 16-year-old daughter around Manhattan, and they're going to charge my American Express. And that's what we're going to do? And he said, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay, and how much you want from me? Well, we want $500,000. Get the fuck out of my office. Okay, so that $500,000 would be worth like $50. I bought the U.S. stock market. I read Burton Malkiel's book, Random Walk on Wall Street, and I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to pick the winners and losers. I'm going to buy $100 of the S&P 500 in a mutual fund. They eventually became ETFs, but I'm going to do this. Every day, I'm going to save a little bit of money, and I'm going to do this. And I tell kids today, save a little bit of money and put it into Bitcoin. I got to tell you this story. I hope you don't mind. Okay, I'm pulling up. I'm going to the Fanatics Fest. Okay, where all the because my kids love this shit, and I got to get autographs. And I'm pulling up to the Equinox Hotel, rare earth minerals, all different types of things in our reserve. And every one of those things is nonpartisan. Meaning, if Jesse, you're a Democrat, neutral, I'm a Republican, we're not arguing about whether or not we need gold or oil in our reserve. We both know that we do. For some reason, Bitcoin was politically polarized. Primarily, we don't have the time to go into it, but primarily by Warren and Gensler. And so we need to reduce the polarization of it. This is why that stable down and sideways is not helping the economy. There's room to cut those rates. The Jerome Powell's not going to cut the rates until he gets more visibility on the tariffs. We could be ripping right now, but he will not allow us to rip. How is it possible Bitcoin's not going to go to 200? So just said differently, 200 is a $4 trillion valuation, market capitalization for something I think is an asset class. That's what, 2 Amazons? Yeah. Bitcoin's going to be worth 2 Amazons when the U.S. government's printing like that. I think it's very cheap. So yeah, I think it's 200.
And like you said, we're still early. There's not a lot of people looking at it relatively.
Just imagine.
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.